If you're someone who feels stuck, emotionally numb, burnt out, and tired of performing, this video is for you. I want to share how I rebuilt myself, what God did in that season, and how you can identify when it's time to reset your nervous system, your identity, and your priorities. Can I show my love for you? In 2023, I made a decision that shocked so many people. I made the choice to move to Los Angeles right after opening up my brokerage, Christin Group, and building my beautiful home that I always wanted in the city that I love. But from the outside looking in, my life looked great. I was successful, I looked happy, I had momentum, I was achieving, I was producing, but on the inside, something was internally wrong. I had unknowingly trained myself to only be happy when I was achieving something. I would set one goal and then chase another, still be unfilled, so I'd chase another goal, and I just continued this hustle mentality until I burnt myself out. That burnout led to something dangerous. I got to a point into my life where I was actually terrified for my own life. I needed something to change in my life. I could not continue going on this path that I was going because it was going to affect me, my business, and the people around me. What I later learned was that I was going through what's called a functional freeze. And a functional freeze is not when you're doing too little, but when you have been doing too much. Your nervous system has pushed you through traumas, through survival mode, through leadership, through God knows what, and it's tired. You're still functioning, you're still producing, and you're still showing up. But emotionally, you're numb, disconnected, exhausted, and empty. I often talk about the childhood trauma it caused me when my father abandoned me in my childhood, but I rarely talk about why I got out of the military. Now, when I was in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Hood, and at 19, I was drugged and brutally assaulted by 2 people in my chain of command. This trauma created a pattern of abuse, abandonment by men that were supposed to protect me and be there for me. By the time I was 19 years old, my nervous system had only learned how to be in fight mode. I adopted this mindset that I was a victor and not a victim, and that's what fueled my ambition. In a good way, I became successful at a very young age. By the time I was 20, I had my real estate license. By the time I was 26, I had built my first home. By the time I was 28, I built my second home, and I started my own group, Christin Group. But on the inside, I was empty. I was on fire, but it was an unhealthy fuel. Moving to California during the peak of my career was risky, but it was the most surrendered to God I had ever been in my life. I had to release control. I had to trust that my agents were trained enough to walk into doors and handle business that I often did on behalf of me. I had to trust God that this new territory I was going through, that He was going to provide for me, that I was going to be okay. During this time, God showed me that He will provide. While I was away, my business actually continued to grow. I got more listings than I ever had while being away. My team was busy. Everything in Houston was flowing and flourishing. California didn't just change my environment, it shaped my identity. In Houston, I was known, respected, trusted. I was the broker, the leader, the girl with all of these accomplishments. In Los Angeles, none of that mattered. I wasn't special there. I wasn't recognized. I wasn't impressive. I was just another woman trying to find her footing in one of the most competitive cities in the world. And that was uncomfortable for my ego, but healing for my soul. For once in my life, I wasn't known for my reputation or my production. Nobody cared about what I owned, what I built, what I'm doing, how many deals I closed. For the first time in a long time, I could finally just exist. I ended up spending a lot of time alone at first. I would go to church on Sundays, and I would go do touristy things. I would try different beaches and go to restaurants by myself. I remember I posted a video on TikTok and Instagram when I went to the Wax Museum by myself in Hollywood Boulevard. I was just having fun and enjoying my own company. And I also started to network in a different type of way. You know, real estate is all about relationships, and things can be very transactional. But in this time of my life, networking wasn't transactional. I didn't have a true intention behind it. It was real. I was curious, I was open, And I was making amazing connections and friendship. And in this moment, God was teaching me to live without armor, that I didn't have to go through life squaring up with my hands up, that I could just be, and he was gonna bring the right people into my life. Instead of chasing productivity, I started really digging into development and learning. I would reach out to agents in LA that were doing more than me just to learn from them. I would reach out to people who had an abundance of listings, and I would do open houses for them. There was an agent named Austin who had a duplex listing for $7 million in Venice Beach. I told him I would be there every single weekend until that property sold, and I was. And I also had one of my most humbling moments at that duplex. I was hosting open house one morning, and an agent from the same company I was with came up to me, and she looked at me and she said, "I thought this was an elite brokerage. How'd you get there?" And I wanted to tell her, "Do you know who the hell I am?" I just smiled and I allowed my character to show her why I was at the agency. I showed her the home. I was kind. In that moment, I realized that as long as your identity is rooted in Christ, you don't have to prove who you are to anyone. I didn't care to tell her I was a broker. I didn't care to tell her my production or my own brokerage. Her opinion didn't matter. I may have been nobody in LA, but I was somebody. But it was not hers to validate that. As my pace continued to slow, I started to try out new things. Being creative, being curious, being playful. You know, when I first started my social media, my first 100,000 followers came from me doing improvs. And a lot of people would encourage me to act, but because I was in Houston, there wasn't really an acting industry there. So now that I was in LA, I said, you know what, let me try to act. I had met several people who went to the school called Barron Brown. Once again, I will be the beginner. I didn't know that that 6-week intensive class was for actors who were booked, busy, and experienced. Here I was, Christin, who had never acted before, in this class, learning the Meisner technique. But the beautiful thing about the Meisner technique is that they teach you how to not be performative, but be authentic. They were actually teaching the actors how to stop acting and how to go within and be yourself. It reminded me of when I was in the military in basic training, and my drill sergeant Powers had asked us who had never shot a weapon before. Little bougie me raised my hand. I said, I've never shot a weapon before. She said, you will be qualified expert because you have no bad habits. And I was. That was the same thing for acting. While most of the experienced actors struggled with learning how to not act, I could actually be great at being myself. At the end of the 6-week intensive, they give you feedback and they either invite you into the class or they tell you this is not for you. And Miss Elaine, one of the instructors that was very hard on me throughout the 6 weeks, left me feedback saying she felt like I would be a strong leading actress and to come into the 2-year program. Now, Cody, the office manager, said, Kristen, she does not say that often, so do not take it lightly. And I didn't. I joined the 2-year program. Now, it was in this 2-year program where I realized I was emotionally numb. We had an emotional preparation class where Miss Elaine put us through different exercises and meditations to bring out different emotions out of us to prepare us for certain scenes. We're in this class and everybody's going through these meditations, and I open my eyes and there's grown men crying, everybody crying, and I couldn't cry, I couldn't feel. I had nothing to access. I joked with my instructor, I raised my hand, I said, Miss Elaine, I'm jaded. I feel nothing. That's when she looked at me and said, Kristen, you probably have more emotion than the most emotional person in this room. It's just buried. And that shook me. Now let me tell y'all how a letter cracked everything open. One day, Miss Elaine asked me and my partner to come in to do a one-on-one session, and we did an exercise called repetition. And in this exercise, Miss Elaine asked me to sit at the table, write a letter to my father, the same father who was the foundation for my nervous system being the way that it was currently, and to focus all of my emotion on that paper, and to only respond to my partner from that emotion. It was in that moment something snapped. I became sharp, emotional, raw, unfiltered. My partner was emotionally shaken, but not from aggression, but from a place of it finally clicked for her. After months of being in class together and watching everyone's walls come down and emotions come out, and me having the struggle of just numbness, it finally clicked. I realized that I had emotion. I was just living guarded and armored my whole life. I also realized that God had slowed my external life so that I could focus on healing this area of my life. I was making more money by doing less. I was happier by being still. And I was healing without struggling. California wasn't about reinvention, it was about restoration. God was teaching me how to live without being in survival mode, how to trust instead of control, how to feel instead of being numb, how to receive instead of perform, and how to rest instead of outrun. Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." I learned that peace is a form of success. God also gave me friendships in Los Angeles that changed my life. For years, I had struggled finding genuine friendships and connections in Houston because people wanted to be my friend because they wanted what I had and what I had access to. They didn't genuinely care for me for who I was. And oftentimes, I became a people pleaser. I was left with my cup run dry. I was putting out more than I was receiving. You know, Los Angeles and the friendships and the acting school allowed me to shift in my identity. I stopped seeing myself as a builder, achiever, producer. I started seeing myself as a woman, a child of God, a creator, a friend, a future wife, a future mother. I realized that ambition does not have to erase softness and that strength doesn't have to cancel out peace. If you're someone wanting to start over and rebuild, I want you guys to learn these few things that I learned myself. Focus on healing what your hustle has covered. Learn to regulate your nervous system and let God identify you, not your accomplishments. Release the need to impress. Your identity should be rooted in God. You do not need validation from others. Even if you can't do what I did and jump and move to a different state, I ended up moving home anyway. But put yourself in a place and position where you can be a beginner again. Go take a new class, go join a new church, go serve somewhere, join a book club, do something that you've always wanted to do. If you're someone like me, you can identify with having friendships where your cup is run empty. Go find friendships that are in alignment with you. You know, the Bible says be equally yoked to your partner, but I believe that is important for friendships as well. Last but not least, trust God's timing and create space for play. You don't just have to hustle. You don't just have to perform for the world. You don't just have to reach the next goal. Learn how to stick in the present moment and be. I'll be really vulnerable with you guys. We're in one of the toughest real estate markets I have ever experienced. My numbers have gone down. My listings are selling slower than normal. I have less buyers than I normally have. Deals aren't closing like they usually have. And God has provided for me, but usually this performance would crush me. But this has been the most peaceful and joyful that I have ever been. One, because my identity doesn't come from production. Two, God is taking care of me and sustaining me. And three, my happiness is coming from other things outside of my career. I want you guys to know that starting over is not a loss, it's just realignment. It's never too late. If you enjoy this video, please share it with someone who needs encouragement. I would love to see your comments in the comment section below. I try to respond to everyone. I love connecting with you guys. And please do not forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.